How's it going, everybody? Jerry Lutz here, back with another Diablo 4 news video. A couple days ago I went over all the new content coming to D4 with the Season of Blood update that'll be landing on October 17th when Season 2 begins. That info came directly from the devs during the first of two planned Campfire Chat live streams in which they went over tons of things to expect next season. I ended up breaking up the info we obtained from that first live stream into two separate videos just because there was so much information to go over. So while in the first video we talked in detail about all the new content additions coming, things like new story, the Blood Harvest activity, new enemies, Hunter's Acclaim bounty board, and the new endgame boss system, this video will be dedicated to going over all the quality of life changes, updates to gameplay, and miscellaneous changes that were announced for the Season 2 update, so let's get right into it. I'm going to run through these as quickly as I can so you guys can be on with your day. We're starting off with general improvements to the game. For you hardcore players out there, the Scroll of Escape will now be consumed if a hardcore player disconnects while in combat, teleporting them to a safe location. While I don't personally play hardcore, this is obviously a good change, as I'm sure nobody wants to lose their character solely off of things that are out of their control. Incenses will now grant a bonus to experience similar to the elixir counterparts, and they'll now persist after death, so no more popping an incense just to die and lose it without benefiting from its entire duration, plus you get that XP bonus now. Speaking on experience bonuses are now multiplicative with the world tier bonus. Essentially what this means is that any bonuses to experience that you have from different sources, like from seasonal blessings or incenses or elixirs, will be added together into a bucket, then be multiplicative with your world tier bonus. This, plus some other changes to experience, results in the leveling process from 1 to 100 becoming 40% faster, which is a huge increase in experience gain. I personally think the climb from like 70, 75 to 100 takes way too long currently, although I don't necessarily feel the urge to get past like level 80-ish anyways, because I previously didn't really care about the endless nightmare dungeon grind. I'd usually just start a new character after reaching around level 80. But with the new endgame boss system, unique farming, and uber unique potential from Duriel coming next season, there is a reason to keep playing post 80 for me, and it looks like we'll be getting there a lot faster with these changes to experience, which I'm all for. Moving on, they're adding a change that unlocks 10 waypoints upon skipping the campaign at the start of each season. This will be 2 waypoints in each zone. This mitigates having to travel around on horseback, unlocking all the waypoints at the start of every season. Here's a big change to Renown. Renown rewards now persist between seasons and new characters. Simply put, if you've unlocked all the Renown rewards once, you'll never have to build up Renown again to unlock them again. As soon as you start a new character in Season 2, you'll have whatever rewards you've gotten previously on other characters, so if you've done everything, you'll have all of those rewards instantly. Overworld monsters in World Tier 3 and 4 no longer trail the player's level after levels 55 and 75 respectively. This is basically walking back a change they made during last season. Now overworld monsters will match your level, so the loot you get from them isn't just lower level garbage. There's also another reason for this change, which we'll get to later. And they're also adding 2 additional character slots. Now we're jumping into town and vendor improvements. The Occultist has set up shop by the Tree of Whispers, nice change. Stashes have been added to all small towns with waypoints. Additional stashes have been added to capital cities near important vendors. And purveyors of curiosities have set up shop closer to the respective town waypoints. All of these are great changes. Changes to mounts. Mounts are now less likely to get stuck or slow down unexpectedly, and improved mounts automatically jumping over traversals. Base mount movement speed increased by 14%, top speed remains unchanged, achieving full speed when using mouse and keyboard has been improved, the speed boost from spur duration increased by 50%, and using spur now breaks through barricades. These are great changes. Obviously, I've kind of always been annoyed with mouse and keyboard horse movement, and they definitely needed the ability to break through barricades because those were very annoying. We're also getting cooldown changes for the mount, which you can see here on screen. Definitely needed because having these very long cooldowns really slowed down the game, especially when you're trying to get from point A to point B. Nightmare dungeon changes. We got a ton of these. You'll now teleport directly into a nightmare dungeon instead of teleporting outside of the dungeon. No more double load screens. Dungeon events monster density increased, and NPCs will no longer get one shot in later world tiers. This is definitely nice. Lots of dungeon events in the late game kind of seem very lack when it comes to enemy density, and those ones where you have to defend NPCs just became immediate skips for me because they would take like a single arrow and just die. Overall readability has been improved for traps, and crowd control across the board has been greatly reduced. So this is CC in the entire game, not just the traps. Reduction in CC I think is great. Hopefully less instantaneous deaths as the direct result of being crowd controlled for an extensive amount of time. And Paragon Glyph experience has been increased. I think this was definitely needed. Really felt like a slog getting those glyphs to the higher levels. Nightmare Dungeon Affliction changes. When the Backstabber's Affliction is active, close monster attacks from behind you cause you to become vulnerable, and vulnerable damage taken is increased based on the dungeon tier. This affliction used to just cause insane amounts of instant damage to you, resulting in you getting a one-shot that should no longer happen. With Monster Critical Resist, monster attacks now reduce the damage of your critical strikes for 3 seconds by a certain percentage based on the dungeon tier. With the Death Pulse Affliction, they've now prevented death pulses on monsters that have on-death explosions and prevented death pulses from spawning on top of each other. The Lightning Storm Affliction will now grant you 35% bonus movement speed for 5 seconds when you're inside the bubble when the lightning strikes. The storm will also now only start when players are in combat, so you don't have to keep waiting for the storm to activate, then end as you move through areas with no enemies. And the storm will only start when the player has a direct path to the bubble, making it easier to reach. More general Nightmare Dungeon changes. They've completely removed objectives from a handful of dungeons and just made it so all you have to do is find the boss. There will still be dungeon events in these dungeons if you want to explore and find them, but you can always just make a mad dash to the boss instead without having to worry about random objectives anymore. They also worked on moving around the objectives that remain so they're more so on the critical path, and they redesigned some more dungeon layouts to limit backtracking. Now, world events. Legion events have had their time between events reduced from 30 minutes to 25 minutes, and the warning timer increased from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. World boss spawns have been reduced dramatically from 6 hours to 3.5 hours, with the warning timer increased from 30 to 60 minutes, and a message will now be broadcasted to all players when the world boss is 15 minutes from spawning. Moving on to Endgame Activities, Nightmare Sigils rewarded from Whisper Caches will now always be within 5 levels of the highest level Nightmare Dungeon the player has completed. Gold reward from Whisper Caches has been greatly increased, and from what the devs said, it sounds like Whisper Caches will be the prime place to farm up gold. Experience from Whispers and Helltide has been increased substantially. Whisper caches adhere to the item slot of the cache now, so you'll always get the item of that cache. And Helltide chests now have specific icons on the map to indicate their type. Moving on to UI and UX changes, items can now be marked as favorite or junk in your stash or inventory. Favorited items cannot be sold or salvaged. Extracted aspects with the same legendary power will now be grouped together when sorted in the inventory and stash, thank the Lord. Sorting of normal affixes on items have been improved to be more consistent, so now if you have 2 different items that both give you dexterity, for example, both those dexterity affixes will appear in the same spot on every item versus kind of randomly in the list. Dungeon map tooltips that have active whispers associated with them will now display the aspect name and description earned when completing that dungeon as well. Stash can now be searched and filtered to find the items you're looking for. This is fantastic. You can search via item type, rarity, use the search bar to type in a certain keyword you're looking for. This is going to help tremendously. Streamer mode has been implemented. Combat text has an added option for hiding text like vulnerable, dodge, and fortified. And an auto run feature has also been added, meaning now we should be able to auto run in a direction while we have the map open, which will be nice. And the mini-map has also been zoomed out to capture a wider area, hopefully resulting in less opening and closing of the map to see where you're going. And lastly, we have a bunch of item changes here. Gems, first off, no longer drop directly as rewards. Now you'll earn gem shard materials that you can use at the jeweler to create the gems you need. We knew this was coming. Glad to finally see it happening. Enchantment costs have also been updated. Your first enchant will cost a little bit more, but it will scale up a lot slower, so you won't be dumping millions into an enchant just after a couple rolls. Crafting materials will drop in place of lower item power, normal magic, and rare equipment in World Tiers 3 and 4. This means instead of getting non-sacred or non-ancestral items, you'll instead get crafting materials in place of them because most, if not all of those items you'd sell or salvage anyways. You won't need to sell these items anymore either because of the change they made to the gold rewards from Whispers, so there's a new place to get gold more efficiently. Legendaries will still appear and drop whether ancestral, sacred, or base, and in World Tier 4, when you start seeing ancestral items drop, instead of seeing sacred items, those two will be replaced with crafting materials. Higher level monsters in World Tier 3 and 4 drop sacred and ancestral items of greater item power potential. So starting with sacred items. When you fight a level 55 monster, you'll have a typical eye power range of an item. Every monster level higher than 55 increases the potential eye power of the items they drop by 2. Then at level 75, when you start earning ancestral gear, each monster level above 75 will see their eye power potential go up by 2 until level 100. So the highest level of eye power you can see in the game will be 925. Once you're fighting enemies above level 100, instead of the max eye power going up by 2 every level, the minimum eye power will increase by 1. So eventually you'll get to a point where the potential range of eye power is 925 to 925 if you keep going up against higher and higher leveled enemies. Do note that they didn't change the range of affixes at all. These increased eye power values will simply be increasing weapon damage, armor values, and elemental resistances. And finally, normal Whisper cache rewards now provide plus 10 item power, upgraded caches now provide plus 20 item power rewards, and Helltide chest rewards now provide plus 20 item power value as well. And alright, that's the announced changes coming alongside Season 2. We will have even more news to cover and break down tomorrow because the second Campfire Chat is happening on the 10th, where Blizzard will be going over class balancing changes, the reworks to elemental resist and damage stacking, changes to uniques, and lots more, so stay tuned for my breakdowns on all of that. Also, the patch notes for the Season 2 update will be going live right after tomorrow's stream, and they're apparently over 14,000 words long, which is a lot. Anyways, thanks for watching, subscribe for more Diablo 4 content and news, and I'll see you in the next one later.